Hi, this is Hans Hartmann. I'm the co-chair of Visual First, our conference that will start October 4th and 5th. More about it is on our website, visualfirst.biz. Right now, dive into the podcast.
The Dead Pixel Society podcast is brought to you by Media Clip, Advertech Printing, and Independent Photo Imagers. Welcome to the Dead Pixel Society podcast, the photo imaging industry's leading news source. Here's your host, Gary Pageau.
Hello again and welcome to the Dead Pixel Society podcast. I'm your host, Gary Pageau, and today we're joined by John Doe, the owner of JONDO.com. Hi, John. How are you today?
Couldn't be better.
Okay, so most people are aware of John Doe, the lab, but how did you get started in the photography business?
Well, I didn't get started in the photography business. Actually, I got started in the fine art business.
Okay.
And that was a long time ago. I think it was December of 1988. So that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
So if you think back that far, you can remember that there weren't digital cameras.
Right.
There wasn't actually personal computers.
Right.
Photography was not on my radar. I worked as a sales manager for an Israeli-based company called Cytex.
Okay, very familiar with Cytex, yeah.
Kind of invented Photoshop, you might say, before there was Photoshop.
Right.
How I got started was the idea of using a Hasselblad camera with a phase one back, that was many, many years ago.
Yep.
It came out, and then put it on an enlarger, and then put a piece of artwork underneath it and captured it digitally so that I could feed it into the world's first 4-color large format digital printing machine, which was an Iris 3024 back then.
Yep.
And the job that I had was selling those machines, and no one wanted to buy them. But I thought the color was great.
Right.
So that's really, I got hooked by the color of digital. And then from there, one day after another, 1 week after another, 1 year after another, I just got deeper and deeper.
So really, color is your main interest. I mean, great color.
Yes, that is to say, because my only customers for many years, like a decade, my only customers were artists who, because I was early in the digital, you would fly from Europe and fly from Asia to be able to spend a week with me. Started in my garage, and then, my neighbors wonder what I have. Asian people, spending a week with me. But it kind of, the word of mouth got out that there was a, digital, and the people who were interested in digital reproduction. There's a number of different reasons why people should be interested in that. The people who were interested would, come by. I still had my day job. I was just, for 6 years, I just did it nights and weekends.
Right.
And then finally I had to make a decision of, is this a real business or should I drop it?
Right.
And so I came, because every image, including original artwork images, are all digital now, and all photography is digital now. The kind of, from my perspective, it's merged together.
Sure.
But there was a time in the art industry when photography was not recognized as art.
Sure. Oh, definitely.
In the early years when I worked with, say, Philip Stuart Charis, he's passed away now, but he was a famous photographer. We kind of worked together to be able to demonstrate why photography had all of the characteristics that are necessary to call it art.
You left Cytex after 6 years.
Yeah, that's right.
And then you went out on your own, started your business, which is fine art reproduction.
In those days, it was called Harvest Productions.
Okay.
It was only for artists, and we only worked for artists. And then that evolved where more and more artists came, and I kind of got leased a 50,000 square foot building. And then inside of the building, I built it out as an Italian town, because I had the privilege of traveling in Europe with a few artists. And so when I came back, I thought I want to replicate. So then it was kind of famous for that. It had awnings, and it had a frame shop, and it had a silk screening shop, and it had a digital print shop. And people would come in from a distance, and then we would just work together to build up limited edition art prints.
And so you transition from the capture side to the output side.
Yes.
And so what were the platforms you were using back then to output? You didn't quite have what we have now.
Yeah, it was completely an Iris 3047, and it was going through a Macintosh, computer.
Right.
And then there was no profiles in those days, so there was no way of mapping the color path.
Right.
to optimize the output.
Right.
And then the output, of course, the ink itself, which in those days was water-based inks. So dye inks are very brilliant in color. They fade, unfortunately, but they're very brilliant in color. So there was no substrates. There was no digital paper.
Right.
There was no digital canvas.
Right.
So I started with everything looked brown because the substrate that I was printing on, so no one would be interested in reproducing their art brown,
Right.
or
Right.
or reproducing their photography brown. But over those many years, I in fact built a company called Bulldog Products,
Okay.
which some years later I sold. And Bulldog Products was in the business of providing the materials that you would need to be able to experiment in this new area of digital printing.
Did you get into substrate manufacturing then, or you just source them, or did you spec them out and have them made, or how?
Funny you would say. So in the area of paper, I worked with Hahnemühle from
Okay.
Germany. So at
Still
that time,
around,
Hahnemühle
big company.
didn't have a digital printing. They didn't know it was a market.
Yeah.
And then with canvas, I worked with a company called Tara, Tara Materials. It's the Fredericks brand name. Artists know the Fredericks brand name. 154-year-old company. And I worked with the family that owned that company to develop canvas so that you could print canvas on digital printing machines.
Right.
And then, ironically, as history went on, the owners of the family of that company wanted me to acquire that company. So now it's called Ecker Textiles is the name of the company, and myself and Mike Ecker are the owners of that company.
Okay. And what do they make specifically?
Well, they make canvas, so
Okay.
they make
the canvas that's stretched on the
they
stretcher
make
bar.
canvas that stretches on the bar that has the kind of color palette, that has the kind of sheen, and there's more than one.
Yeah.
But again, going back to the original story, is you have the inks and then you have the substrate.
Right.
And then what you want to do is get the widest white to black point and the best saturation point
Right.
without the actual ink droplets blending together.
Right.
And when you've got that combination right, you can map it and you get the optimum out of the image, whatever image you're reproducing. What if it's a black and white image? Well, then you're going to get the optimum black and white.
Right. So that must have been like the Wild West back then.
Yeah, well, it's nice to talk to you. Nice to see you after 32 years.
Well, in the sense that it was, you're kind of paving new roads.
Yeah.
You were kind of in an area that
Yeah.
you didn't even know if it was actually going to work.
Maybe you've heard of giclee.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
I invented giclee.
Okay.
It's a made-up word.
Of course, yeah.
As a matter of fact, in French, it's a French word. I read it out of the dictionary. And that's not even how the French pronounce it. So when I went to France, they didn't recognize what I was saying. And I'm from Rochester, New York, so that's an accent, giclee.
Yeah, exactly.
But if I go to Japan, they say giclee.
Yeah. So how long have you been in the production side? How did you get into the mass production side of the canvas
making
business?
things. That was like an evolution. So it started just working with oil painters and watercolorists and acrylic painters. And then along came my first photographer that I had the opportunity to work with was Philip Stewart Charis, and he was selling famous photos of Hollywood personalities. And so I spent a lot of time with him. He was very interested in what I was doing. And again, I was in this big Italian town, so we had a bar, we had a wine bar, and we used to spend a lot of time together.
Pondering life's mysteries.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Actually, me printing it again and again and again for free until he liked it. That was probably the truth. But anyways, I certainly appreciated the education he was giving me. And, so that was where I started to become interested in photography or recognizing photography as fine art.
And then from there, you've kind of gone mass market, if you will.
Well, it evolved. So that kind of started with many years ago. There was an executive from Costco who showed up at my front door and knocked on the front door and introduced himself.
Of the Italian villa.
In the Italian villa. And he had purchased a giclee, a piece of fine art, a limited edition. And on the back of it was my name. So he had the initiative to trace it down, got on a plane, came down, didn't make an appointment, just knocked on the front door and said,
As you could do back then.
say, what's going on here? And then, we spent some time together, me not giving him much time because I didn't know, why are you interrupting my day?
Right.
And in those days, Costco was a large retailer. And, my art customers didn't sell their product in large retail. I worked for museums and art galleries.
Right, exactly.
So I explained to him, I don't shop at Costco. So I don't know anything about
Why are you here?
He was not offended, thank goodness. So he wanted a tour, and I gave him a tour, and he was very interested in what it was and how it might apply to Costco's photographic customers.
Which at the time, as I recall, I mean, they had a very, they provided photographer with profiles.
Yeah.
They were really trying to attract the professional photographers.
Professional photographers.
Yeah.
Right. And give them a good price and a good product. What Costco's known for is doing the research to be able to identify where's the best for your money.
Right.
And then asking that vendor, including myself, to be able to reduce the price so that they can have, the value that Costco routinely delivers.
Yeah. So as you had that conversation with this executive, you were you like thinking, well, this is a great opportunity, or I don't want to hassle with this at all?
It's fun to talk about now. It's like I was too interested in just getting my, staying solvent and getting my work out.
Yeah.
And so actually what he said was, well, could you connect your digital factory to my cash registers? Of course, that would be a misnomer.
Right, but POS
but I got the point, and
Yeah.
I said, I honestly don't know. I know that my son John Doe has connected internally in my factory all of my machines together so that we can have one source of entry to be able to access the production.
Sure.
And it's possible, if you wanted to look into it, that could happen. So he provided an expert in software who was more proficient than my son at his young age. That was probably 12, 13 years ago now.
Right.
And then they began, that process of connecting it. We started just in the Costco stores. I did 1,648 roadshows.
Wow.
I still remember the number.
Really?
I do. Because, they bet you,
Yeah, and what was that like? Because, right now, these days...
Oh, it was fascinating.
Canvas... Printing on photo canvas is, I would say routine, but many people are aware of it. It's kind of a very common product in the sense there's a lot of sites offering it, a lot of retailers offering. So what was it like showing samples to people and say, this could be your picture?
Yeah. Well, that's what I said. So I stood on the floor and I would say, would you like to see your photo on canvas? And they always answered the same. Why would I want to see your photo on canvas?
Right.
And I said, no, your photo. How could you possibly have my photo on canvas?
Right, because it was a completely different.
And then I said, do you have a digital camera? And that was the dawn of digital cameras. Do you have a digital camera? Yes. Do you have a memory chip in the digital camera? Okay, so hand me that, and I will drive back to my factory, and then I'll manufacture it for you, and then I'll meet you here next Saturday at 10 a.m. and bring you the product. And there was a piece of paper that we filled out, and the cash register would figure out how to charge them for it. And so it was all driving back and forth and delivering it by hand and making it in the middle of the night and getting it in a box and getting it back. It was a long road.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I'd never do it again.
Yeah, as I imagine you had to talk to a lot of people.
A lot of people.
Out of those 6,000 visits.
Yeah. There was 571 Costco stores, and either me or one of my employees visited every single one.
Wow. So from there, how did that evolve into the modern solution, right? Because now you're providing output.
Well, I think it's a natural evolution. So, and Costco was a bit of a part of that too, because Costco wanted to be able to deliver to their customers faster.
Right.
So each day, as business grew, because business grew pretty rapidly, each day I'd see a FedEx truck, driving to New York.
Right.
So it didn't take me long to figure out that if I put an identical factory in New York, and I had ways of controlling it and managing it, that I would be able to just make it in New York and deliver it to New York City the next day.
Right.
So that's what I did. I got on a plane and leased a building and pushed some equipment into it and just started.
And so how many facilities do you have? Did you have at that time?
I had one in Southern California, and then I had the second one was in New York. And then, now we have 11 locations around the world. So I have one in Australia, I have one in Canada, I have one in Spain, I have one in England. So now if you have a customer, if someone has a customer and they want to have it delivered over there, then you can save the time and the expense. It's very expensive to ship something to Australia.
Yeah, and it's just heavy and
it wastes a lot of carbon.
Yep.
There's just nothing good about it.
Yeah.
So I think what makes me different than other people is that I developed the process for the reproduction that was the most efficient and that was the best color that I knew based on what artists said that customers wanted to buy. I didn't have a preference, and even the artist didn't have a preference. It was the art gallery that knew what the thickness of the stretcher bar should be,
right.
What the wrap around it should be. So It was the art galleries who were driving the specifications for the product that I make today.
So they were kind of, in a way, retailers in the sense.
Yes.
So they were familiar, like you said, what are the sizes and formats and thicknesses and
that customers want to buy.
Yeah.
So
they were feeding you that intelligence, so that informed, which is interesting because there's a lot of folks who kind of got into the digital printing space, whatever, to kind of do what they wanted, create the look that they wanted.
Yeah.
That's not what you did.
Yeah. No, I'm not an artist. My best reference would be an atelier. An atelier is a French word that means that you act as the artist in the space of the artist.
You didn't make that word up, did you?
No, I did not. They taught me. Oh, you need to be an atelier, John. What's that? It's just like I was doing it, only I'm not going to be here.
Right.
Where are you going to be? Well, I'm going to be on my balcony overlooking the ocean.
Right.
So, okay, I see our relationship.
So how long has John Doe been in the business of you kind of, I'm assuming that you moved from harvest production.
That's right.
And you evolved.
Once I wanted to be international, harvest is not an international name.
Right.
And then because I have the unfortunate, birth name of being John Doe, my lawyer said, why don't you call the company John Doe? Because they pronounce it the same way all over the world. Right. And then you have so it's the ultimate validation of the misfortune of being named John Doe.
There you go. I imagine some people probably think there's really not really a guy named John Doe there, is there?
Yeah, I've heard that before.
A couple times. So how long have you been John Doe, the business, and how have you expanded beyond just a single very large influential customer?
Well, let's see. I guess I started in 1988, and then 6 years later, I left my job and went in full time. And perhaps the name started John Doe in 12 or 13 years ago. And I've done a lot of traveling since then, and met a lot of fine people. My ambition was just to be able to, everyone, including yourself, I'm sure, just wants to be of some value to someone. You don't want to be just like everyone else.
Right.
And it seemed like, I'm environmentally aware. My wife's license plate is tree friend. So, so I thought, well, I can save a lot of carbon and save a lot of air transportation, save dollars too, if I develop a network where it's one-stop shopping. So that is to say, when my customers reach John Doe, if there's taxation in Spain, I take care of the taxation. If there's freight in Spain, I take care of the freight in Spain. If there's a currency exchange, because there is a currency exchange, I take care of it. So with the customers that I have, I think the value that we bring to them is that we're one-stop shopping. They can sell around the world, because once you're selling online, there's no reason to just sell in one state of the United States. There's no reason just to sell just in North America.
Right.
You're global.
Right.
So you need a global fulfillment company.
Right.
That's me.
Yeah. So what are some of the ways that people can begin to do business with John Doe, right? I mean, you've got obviously a sales team and people like that, but if somebody who's interested in becoming a client, what is that process like?
Yeah, it's pretty easy. We have so if you want to access John Doe's products, and it has more than canvas, it has the photo products that you'd think of, which would be paper and varieties of paper, and canvases and varieties of canvas, and metal prints and wood prints and acrylic prints, and what it doesn't have is a wet lab. So
right.
we never got into that side of the business because we started from the art side of the business.
Right. Digital first.
There's something called John Doe Go, John Doe Go, and with John Doe Go, you can simply go to the number of SKUs that we have, and then select the SKUs that we have, put the address that you want to have it be delivered to, swipe your credit card, and it'll just access your order, and it'll deliver it to where you want to have it delivered.
But that's like retail pricing. That's like, I mean, that's not like.
Yeah, I don't do any retail business. I only do wholesale business.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
So I only have one pricing.
Okay, that makes it kind of easy, right?
Yeah, well, it's complicated. I have 4,600 SKUs, so I don't want to mix it up much.
Yeah, I was saying that would exponentially make it more difficult.
Yeah, it'd be more difficult to manage in 11 locations.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially when you're taking care of the tax and the transportation and everything.
So since you've expanded into these other products, which are kind of beyond, and I'm not sure if mugs and such qualify as fine art, but where do you think you're going to go next with this, with some of the products that are being in the marketplace now?
Yeah. Well, I think that there's a lot of room to grow in metal. There's I credit Chromolux with a high-end marketplace, but Chromolux is quite expensive. So we have Chromolux, and then we have other varieties of metal that are suitable, that are more expensive or less expensive than the premium product. I think that the newest product that we have is called Palette Plus. And Palette Plus is for people who can sell to retailers. So if you had any retailer you want, let's think of a small retailer because Wayfair's covered.
Right, exactly.
But there's small retailers that if you want to purchase a palette of your imagery because you've sold it to a small retail store, we have like really great pricing, because when you make a palette of the same thing, it costs less to make it.
Right, exactly.
So that's like probably the freshest new idea that we have. We've only started that just weeks ago, but it's working well. We have people who are appreciating it. It kind of competes with China. So because of the difficulty of getting things from China,
right,
having something made in the United States or made close to where it has to be delivered. So that could be, a new important product.
But that would be like one-off of the same image.
It could be one of the same image, but actually it could be 48 of 48 different images that are shrink-wrapped, not boxed, and then delivered to the retail store that.
Okay. So that's interesting, because that would be the opportunity then for someone who has got, like, maybe in the volume photography space or schools or events or something like that, where they need a lot of similar size products, but the images, they don't always do the same. The important thing
the
is
images could change,
palletized.
but the size has to be the same, and it has to be at least a pallet's worth.
So you have to, if you can palletize it,
and that's how you get the price.
Okay, awesome.
And I deliver the pallet to where you want.
There you go. Not you yourself personally.
No.
Because because it sounds to me like you're a very hands-on person.
Well, I enjoy what I do. I have a residence. It's true, but I live in my factory.
Okay. Really?
So I have a residence about 2 miles from my factory, but mostly I stay at the factory.
Okay. So how does your wife feel about that?
Well, I've been married for a long time, so
maybe that's why.
She's kind of okay with it.
That may be the reason why, actually.
Yeah, it wasn't the reason why, but I just enjoy it. It's like.
Well, here it's an Italian.
If you came by, we'd just spend some time together, and we'd have a good time, and we'd drink some wine. I learned that from the artists, and then maybe we'd make something together. If you brought an image, I would. I've done that more than once in the evening.
Sure.
Just to have fun, just to make art.
So, where does someone go to get more information about JONDO.com?
I guess you go to JONDO.com. I've been posting things there for 11 years. I can honestly say that I haven't been there more than 3 times myself, but because I already know my story. Yeah. But I have, Travis Doe is a fellow that's been working with me for a long time, and he's got our messages up there.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you, John, for your time. Appreciate hearing the story. It's been fun, and look forward to seeing more in the future.
Cool. Maybe you'll come by the factory sometime.
I would love to.
Thank you for listening to the Dead Pixel Society podcast. Read more great stories and sign up for the newsletter at www.thedeadpixelssociety.com.